A poor mechanic was asleep in seat 8A when the captain asked if any mechanic were on board. The announcement shattered the silence at 30,000 feet. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is a mechanic on board, please press your call button immediately. Daniel Carter stirred in seat 8A. He hadn't meant to fall asleep. 12-hour shifts at a small auto shop in Ohio had a way of draining the soul out of a man. Grease still clung to the edges of his fingernails despite scrubbing them raw in the airport restroom. His jeans were clean but worn. His boots were old. He didn't look like someone flying across the country. Truth was, Daniel rarely flew anywhere. This ticket had cost him 3 months of overtime. He was headed to Seattle to see his 10-year-old daughter, Lily. After the divorce, she'd moved with her mother. Daniel hadn't been able to afford many visits. This one mattered. He blinked as murmurs spread across the cabin. A flight attendant hurried down the aisle, her polite smile stretched thin with concern. Again, the captain's voice came over the speaker, steadier this time but urgent. "We are experiencing a mechanical issue in the cockpit involving an auxiliary control panel. It's not an emergency, but we require technical assistance. If you have professional mechanical experience, please identify yourself." Daniel froze. He wasn't an aircraft mechanic. He didn't have fancy certifications hanging on an office wall. He fixed transmissions, rebuilt engines, and coaxed life back into dying trucks in a 2-bay garage with a flickering neon sign. Airplanes were different. But machines spoke the same language. He hesitated. What if he made things worse? What if people laughed when they saw him? He could already imagine the stares, this guy, the poor mechanic from seat 8A. Then he thought of Lily. If she were on a plane in trouble, wouldn't he pray someone, anyone, would stand up? His finger pressed the call button. Minutes later, Daniel stood awkwardly at the front of the aircraft. The captain and first officer looked surprised, not dismissive, just cautious. "You're an aircraft mechanic?" the first officer asked. "No, sir," Daniel admitted. "Auto mechanic, 20 years. Engines, wiring systems, hydraulics. If it's mechanical, I can usually figure it out." The captain studied him. Outside the cockpit window, clouds drifted peacefully, unaware of human tension. "We've got an issue with a backup control interface," the captain explained. "It's partially jammed. Our systems are stable, but we can't ignore it." Daniel swallowed. "May I take a look?" Inside the cockpit, the world shrank to blinking lights and controlled breathing. He crouched carefully, listening, not just to the explanation, but to the subtle hum and vibration of the aircraft. Machines always told the truth if you paid attention. He noticed something small, barely visible. A thin metal bracket had shifted, likely from turbulence earlier in the flight. It wasn't broken, just misaligned. On a car, it would have been a 10-minute fix. On a plane full of 162 passengers, it felt like surgery. "Do you have a small flat tool?" he asked. The first officer handed him something close enough. Daniel worked slowly, gently. No force, just patience. He breathed in, steadied his hands, and adjusted the bracket millimeter by millimeter. A soft click echoed. The panel settled perfectly into place. Lights on the dashboard flickered back into normal alignment. The captain tested the controls. Smooth, stable, fully responsive. Silence filled the cockpit before the captain exhaled in disbelief. "Well, I'll be," he murmured. Then louder, "You just solved our problem." Daniel leaned back, heart pounding. It was just alignment, probably shifted during turbulence. "Just alignment," the first officer laughed, half in relief. "You may have prevented a major diversion." The captain extended his hand firmly. "Mr. Carter, Daniel Carter. Mr. Carter, today you're our hero." Daniel shook his head. "No, sir, just did what anyone should do." When he returned to seat 8A, the cabin felt different. Word travels fast on airplanes. Passengers looked at him with quiet gratitude. The woman across the aisle wiped tears from her eyes. A businessman in a tailored suit stood to let him pass and gave him a respectful nod. The flight attendant leaned down softly. "Thank you." Daniel shrugged, embarrassed. Wasn't a big thing. But it was. 20 minutes later, the captain's voice filled the cabin again. "Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to a passenger with mechanical expertise, our issue has been resolved. We'll be continuing safely to Seattle. Let's give a round of applause to Mr. Daniel Carter in seat 8A. The plane erupted. Applause thundered through the aisle. People turned, smiling. Some stood. Daniel felt heat rise to his face. He'd never been applauded in his life, not in school, not in work. He had always been invisible. Until now. But the real twist came after landing. At the gate, as passengers gathered their bags, a man in his mid-50s approached Daniel. He wore a tailored navy suit, polished shoes, the quiet confidence of someone used to making decisions that moved markets. "I'm Richard Langford," he said, offering his hand. "I own Langford Automotive Systems." Daniel blinked. Everyone in the auto world knew that name. It was one of the largest parts suppliers in North America, operating across the US, Canada, and the UK. "I was 3 rows behind you," Langford continued. "I watched the whole thing. Most people would have stayed seated. You didn't." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "I just did what needed doing." Langford smiled slightly. "That's rare, skill matters, but character matters more." He